So we have some scary news that I want to cover today. First off, we have the date of the next pandemic. When is this going to be, and where is this going to originate from? We've heard from people like Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, and Johns Hopkins University. Now, what I can tell you, and I'm going to show you some stuff today that you are probably going to be shocked that you're even seeing, but it's out there. Now, I've got a lot of questions from people asking about inflation, asking about the recession, asking about the U.S. economy and so much more, and saying that, okay, this is going to be a tough year, 2022 and 2023, but things will get back to normal probably early 2024. Well, the date of this next pandemic is 2025. That is a very important date to understand. Now, let's go through some of this stuff, okay? What is scary about everything that's going on right now, and again, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, is that former President Barack Obama, he ran simulations during his presidency as to how to test his administration and how to deal with a pandemic if it were to occur. Even former President Donald Trump, he was warned by Dr. Anthony Fauci, and Dr. Fauci told him that there would be a pandemic sometime during his presidency, but didn't tell him when. That's interesting. And now, Bill Gates, the World Health Organization, and Johns Hopkins University, they're now conducting exercises, or they conducted a pandemic exercise just recently in Belgium. They called this the catastrophic contagion event. Yeah, the catastrophic contagion event. That's what they named it. Now, prior to all of this stuff, though, the United States has had a lockdown procedure in place even before the pandemic outbreak of 2020. This lockdown procedure has been in place since 2007. This was just the first time we've used it. But here's what's even scarier. They say if we have to lock down, then we would lock down until a vaccine is ready. Just think about that for a second. Just think about what would have happened to your business, to your son and daughter, and maybe yourself. Maybe you're in school at that time. What would have happened? You couldn't go to work. You couldn't go to school. You couldn't go to the hospital or a clinic unless it was vital to staying alive. What would have happened? People wouldn't be educated. They would have lost their homes, their cars. They couldn't afford food. Or the U.S. government would have to come in and stimulate the entire economy, and we would be in much more debt than just $31.4 trillion. Think about that. In this lockdown procedure, it says that this would mean that there'd be homeschooling, there'd be work from home policies, non-essential businesses would close down until a vaccine was ready. And even in their statement, even in this website, and it's from a government website, it's from CISA.gov. In this website, it is specifically saying that the goal of a lockdown is to bring down the transmissible cases so that more and more people are not being infected. And once the number comes down and it's somewhat steady, hopefully there would be a vaccine ready by that time. But again, just think about how long it took. What did it take, like 8 months? 6 to 8 months to get a vaccine? Right? Or whatever it was. And even then, millions of people did not want to take it because it was rushed. That's the issue, is how long have we been waiting for a vaccine for things like cancer or whatever. And yet it takes decades, or some illnesses don't even have a cure simply because, well, not enough money, not enough people willing to take it, right? Now, after this event that took place from the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, World Health Organization, all that, right? After this event, in this event, they released a video that addressed the next pandemic, and they talked about, they give it a name, they talked about the date, which is 2025, but they also talked about what it's going to do, right? They called the next pandemic SEERS. This stands for Severe Epidemic Enterovirus Respiratory Syndrome 2025. SEERS. That's what they're calling it. Now, what is strange about this is that Bill Gates and the World Health Organization, they've had to put something like this together before. They actually put together something in 2019. It came out in October 2019, and they called this event Event 201. Now, this was months before the COVID pandemic actually hit. This is before we really knew what was going on, but they called this event Event 201. And they also talked about how many people would be impacted. Well, I want to show you something. I want to show you this thing right here. Look at this. It's from a website called centerforhealthsecurity.org, but it's the whole thing for Event 201. Now, you come down here and you can read it. Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic. And talks about the purpose, okay? Talks about the scenario, the recommendations, right? And it also talks about when and where it was, right? So you can see right here, October 18th, 2019. We were in a pandemic just months after that. Now, you can also see the scenario, which they outline. That is here. And I want to read you this, okay? It says, Event 201 simulates an outbreak of novel zoonotic coronavirus transmitted from bats to pigs to people that eventually becomes efficiently transmissible from person to person, leading to a severe pandemic. The pathogen and the disease it causes are modeled largely on SARS, but it is more transmissible in the community setting by people with mild symptoms. The disease starts in pig farms in Brazil, quietly and slowly at first, but then it starts to spread more rapidly in healthcare settings, when it starts to spread efficiently from person to person in the low-income, densely packed neighborhoods of some of the megacities in South America. The epidemic explodes. It is first exported by air travel to Portugal, the United States, and China, and then to many other countries. Although at first some countries are able to control it, it continues to spread and be reintroduced, and eventually no country can maintain control. Now, here's what I want to just finish off with this one right here. The scenario ends at the 18-month point with 65 million deaths. 65 million. The pandemic is still too slow due to the decreasing number of susceptible people. The pandemic will continue to cause at some rate until there's an effective vaccine or until 80 to 90% of the global population has been exposed. From that point, it is likely to be an endemic childhood disease. Interesting. Okay. Now, let's leave it at that. One thing I just want to say is that this is serious. Okay? This was serious when they put this out. Just months before, and then it turned out to be right. Now, according to the reports from this tabletop exercise, they say that this would hit less here in the United States than COVID did. But again, because COVID, even though this report right here, okay, that I was just reading to you, or this, it's not really a report, it's a scenario. This was a simulated scenario that ended up being pretty much real. But according to the reports, this would hit less than here in the United States than COVID. And the reason why is because COVID originated in China, in Wuhan, China. That's where it originated from. Now, here in the United States, we get a lot less travelers to and from Brazil. You get a lot more going to China. So because of that, it was easily transmitted from person to person. Now, the problem, though, does lie in the export business, because Brazil does export a lot of food. They export a lot of iron and stuff like that as well. But again, there's a lot of exports coming, so there could be a delay in this pandemic. Now, I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying it's interesting that the United States has been planning for something like this since 2007. the last two presidents, President Barack Obama and President Donald Trump, both were told or ran simulations that a pandemic is coming, and then in 2020 it actually happens. I don't know. It seems interesting. But the other thing that seems interesting is businesses are putting, especially the pharmaceutical companies, are putting more money into research and development. They want to develop the next big vaccine, because what we saw over the past 2.5 years is that the pharmaceutical companies made bank on their vaccines. But here's the thing that's different. According to the reports, what was different about COVID was that it didn't target children. Now, children have things like the polio vaccine that they have to get, right? That they have to go and get these, or there's certain vaccines you gotta get every so often, right? And you just gotta go and, it gets repeated. Here's the thing. If you have to go and get something over and over and over and over again every year, like a flu shot or something else, the pharmaceutical companies are gonna make bank. They're gonna make a lot of money on this. Now, I'm not trying to spread some conspiracy theory. These are actual events. Event 201 actually happened. They just ran a recent one, Contagion, right? That one was a recent event. I believe this was back in October. So these things are actually happening, but mainstream media isn't telling us these. Why? Well, for one, in the Contagion event that just happened recently, they were using CNN anchors or former anchors to actually go and talk about and release these little video clips. Now again, they're simulations, but they're using people from CNN. You think CNN wants to tie their name to that? Not at this point. But again, it's interesting as to what's going on. So, what happens now? Well, here's one thing I can tell you, because I've already seen a few reports talking about this exact same thing, is if we know, or if we have any inclination that there's going to be another pandemic, we want to make sure that whoever is in office, whoever is the president, can control this. Okay? They can run the country, and people believe in what they're doing. And so, who as of right now are the leaders? Who are as of right now are considered the front runners for the presidency in 2024 and on? Well, we have to throw in President Joe Biden, because obviously he's the sitting president. So he would be one of the front runners. But who would be the next one? Is it former President Donald Trump? According to the reports, the answer is no. That Republicans would push for anybody else but Donald Trump. These are Republicans. These are lawmakers. Okay, not just your neighbor or yourself or whoever. These are lawmakers are going to push for somebody else because they don't believe that former President Donald Trump did exactly what he needed to do. Now, according to many, the front runner for the Republican Party would be Ron DeSantis. That's who they're saying. Because according to many, they're saying that Ron DeSantis did far better than anybody else running Florida, running a state. He did the best, okay, by far. So, this could mean pretty soon Republicans choose him over former President Donald Trump. But again, just wanted to give you this story because I thought this was very interesting. I thought it's very interesting that they're already discussing the next pandemic. They're giving us a date and origin and kind of what to look for. So we will see what happens. We're still, a couple years away from that. I will give you more news and updates as soon as we get them. So again, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.